garu, Honorable Minister for Industries, Commerce and Information Technology, Government of Andhra Pradesh, to deliver his message.
First of all, when the ISC people come to me and said that so we will not be giving you more than 5 minutes of talk time, I must tell you I was mightily relieved. I said I can't talk beyond 5 minutes, trust me. So first of all, thanks a lot and good morning to all. I'd like to wish the Honorable Minister for Agriculture and Civil Supplies, Government of Telangana, Mr. Nitin Garu, along with my colleague Jayagala, the Member of Parliament, also the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, Additional Secretary, Mr. Harish Garu, the Dean of ISB, Srivastava Garu, Mr. Srinidhi Raju, and all to the media personnel and the other esteemed guests gracing this occasion. First of all, let me tell you how privileged I am to be invited for the second edition of this Deccan dialogue, centered on economic diplomacy in the age of disruptions. I must tell you this. This is a very apt subject to me because I come from Generation X, and Generation X is always known to be disruptors across the world. So this subject has been very close to me, and I must tell you share my few insights about this. Disruption is basically of two kinds. One is the internal and one is the external kind. The internal kind is basically what we see is the financial indiscipline, what we call the inflation, political instabilities, and so forth and so on. The external part, that is what we are going to be talking about, and I think this afternoon session is going to be centering on, is basically upon the destructive technologies or adaptive technologies, and basically the international trade wars that are going around in this present global climate. I must tell you, this age of disruption is actually not new to the mankind. If my history serves me right, the age of disruptions, the Homo sapiens have thrived on these disruption technologies, right from Stone Age to Renaissance, to if you look at your industrial revolutions, or if you look at even at your IT revolutions. Disruptions has always been the cornerstone. Every time there's been a quantum jump in mankind, disruption has been the cornerstone of such issues. So to me, I always look at disruption as not something which is negative, but something which I think is going to be actually giving us the next quantum jump in this human mankind. And just as so it happens, the state of Andhra Pradesh, we just got in the new government. We have a very young Chief Minister, Sri Y.S. Jagannath Reddy Garu. I think he does not need any introduction over here because his perseverance and his integrity for the last 9 to 10 years, if you see the fight that he has done, and one tries to go by his example, really, that perseverance is what has paid off. And I must tell you, the people of Andhra Pradesh has given our party, the Chief Minister, an overwhelming majority of more than 151 seats out of 175. And I think in the recent past, in the history, 50% of the vote share had come to this one single party. Now, in such trying times, as a young government that we've come in, when we look at the world economic environment, world economic scenarios, the headwinds that are blowing are pretty strong. Right across the world, we see that there is a huge amount of unemployment taking place. And if I'm not wrong, recently this is Goldman Sachs had come out with a report in August 2019, where they basically said, compared to the previous slowdowns, this present slowdowns that we're going to be seeing, the international world is going to be seeing, is a protracted slowdown, but shallower and more concentrated in consumptions. Now, I must tell you, as a government, as a policy maker, this does not augur well for us. But we also have to tell you this, we are also bestowed, when we came into the government, we were bestowed about basically overborrowings. If you look at the debt to the GSDP, we were standing at 30% ratio, we're standing at 30% ratio, whereas FRBM prescribes not more than 25%. And if you really see today, 16 to 18% of my budget just goes to catering just a simple interest, interest of the principal. in such trying times, we said, how do we take on such headwinds? How do we take on these challenges as in government? At one end, we see that this unemployment is growing up. On the other side, we see technology is leaping, going rapidly, leaping by bounds. And this is one of the big challenges that we as a young government, we found ourselves. So what got us to thinking was basically, we said, okay, let's go back to our drawing boards and see, in the next 5 years, we need to progress in the sphere of economic development, because without the economic development, without growth in your part, in the industries, it's not going to be a happy scenario. So what we said is, we went back to our drawing boards and we said, all right, we will work out a scenario whereby we will have empowerment of social. We'll do a social empowerment, but we'll also do, what we said is, we'll also create real-time jobs. I'll be happy to explain to you this. In the last 2 months, the government of Andhra Pradesh has created nearly 5,37,000 jobs in one instance itself. If I'm not wrong, this is one of the biggest job creation that has happened in any state across India. And this is basically what we said is, we looked up at a report that basically, I think if I'm not wrong, it was somewhere in 2011 when McKinsey report had said that basically the basic services that today the people, that they get, whatever services that they are best of and whatever they're supposed to be getting, only 50% of the basic services are reaching these people. So we saw an opportunity there. We said, if we can raise it to 75%, if I can create at the same time a good governance, if at the same time this gives me a chance to create employability, I said, why not we take up this chance? So that is the reasons why we created, and also with this, we also said administration needs to be decentralized. So one of the biggest things that we have done is, if you see across India, most of the administrations either lies centered in your capital cities, or in your district headquarters, or it is basically in other secretariat staff. But we decided that we need to take the governance, a real-time governance, to the people of the villages. People who, almost 87% of the people dwell in those villages. So that is why we created village secretariat systems, where every service, where every basic services, the people from that village need not have to go to the mandal headquarters or need not have to go to the district headquarters. Those services will be delivered to you at your doorstep. Now to me, I saw an opportunity here. We all saw an opportunity here. One, we're creating great governance system over here. And number two, we're also creating employability. So this culminated, as I said again, a creation of job creation was happening. Also, one of the things that we also said is that one of the mainstay of this government and our government in Andhra Pradesh has been what we call the Navaratna schemes. These 9 schemes are basically social empowerment, but also it is also called freedom from administration. One of the things, what we said is that to grow and to commit to ourselves, the economic growth and revenue buoyancies are 2 important points of this. One thing that as the state of Andhra Pradesh, I think the Honorable Vice President was so kind enough to say, one thing that we have in abundance and one thing that we have across in India, and especially not particular to any one state, but also one specialist that we have is that abundance of human capital. State of Andhra Pradesh is bestowed, it's blessed with entrepreneurial genes. We have, as he says, some of the top 100 CEOs or the top, the value creation families have come out of Andhra Pradesh. So this also we have taken that, as an advantage to us. And what we've said is, how do we support in these trying times? What do we need? In fact, we are using this opportunity to clean up our internal house. We are saying we need to get back fiscal discipline back to our state. In the past, I've seen this, Minister of Industries, I've seen this so many times, a lot of industrialists walk up to me and say this incentive schemes that they were promised to them have not been paid. So one of the first meetings that we had with our Chief Minister, and the Chief Minister was so prompt in asking us this question, if we are not paying these incentives, these industrialists, how can we expect new investments to walk into our state? So he actually said, let's bring in the financial discipline to the state first. And I'm very happy to announce that the outstanding incentives that have been there for the last 5 years or the last 10 years, I think it was tantamounting to almost about 2,500 or 2,600 crores, 67% of it has been cleared as of yesterday. So this is the kind of fiscal discipline that we would like to bring into the state. And also what we also said is the ease of doing business. I mean, just the Minister for External Affairs, the Minister of State for External Affairs has said this. This ease of doing business is basically a program set about by the Government of India along with World Bank in seeing that how exactly the businesses are doing. We have taken it a further notch down. We said we will take it down to the district levels. We do not, because that is where it actually starts. It's your local Tahsildar is the first person if you need any permission. So we said we will involve those stakeholders into this ease of doing business too. So such proactive steps. So what we have also decided is this: we are using this as an opportunity. This whatever we call this disruptions that is happening right now. We are going to be using this as an opportunity, as I said, to clean up our rear house. And we have also embarked on one single agenda in our state. We want to create the world-class workforce. You know, if you really understand the IT revolution that has happened in the late 90s and the early 2000s, it was none thanks to any government agencies. If you really historically look back the IT revolution that took place in this country, or why our services were much needed across the world, it was purely the fact that basically our mothers and fathers said, other than mathematics, you're not studying anything else. No arts, no sciences. I mean, you want to be an actor, no actor. You just have to be in mathematics. So by default, a lot of us had gone into maths. And that culminated us into getting into IT technologies. So we do not want such chances again. We do not want to take such chances again. And that's why as a state of Andhra Pradesh, we said we want to create the next international workforce that we can be proud of. It might take long, but I said this is the time we need to start putting in the foundations for such workforce. So what we've also realized basically is creating skill set development centers right across our state. As a government, my job is to create policies. My job, my direction is to create a flawless policy, implementable policies, where it becomes easy for anyone to implement it. Because we strongly believe it's the policies which are going to empower and enrich the future generation of entrepreneurs or the workforce. And that is the reason why we've gone back and said, we need to get back to the basics of what this is all about. And we said this. In one of the meetings, actually, I must also tell you this. Our Honorable Chief Minister said, industrialization, but not at the cost of environment. He said, we have a moral duty to the coming generations of this India, that today we should not become the waste bin of the world, that, that every polluting industry should not be in our, we should not be inviting them over here. So this green revolution that he wants to undertake, he says is very clear. One, at the same time, it's not only enriching the people, but with a very, very, I would really say with a responsible administration over here. Before I finish and conclude my remarks, I would just like to say that, we are also taking this with a very cautious optimism. We do not want to get carried away by, centralization, any revenue forecasting. We believe certainly this young and dynamic India is at a threshold of greatness. And I think we should grab it by these two hands, because we certainly believe in one thing: there is a greatness, prosperity, and overall development is awaiting us all. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Shri Gautam Reddy Garu. Requesting Professor Rajendra Srivastava, Dean ISB, to present a memento to the Honorable Minister as a token of welcome.